sitting here in front of the former residence of Angelo Bruno, the one-time mob boss of Philadelphia. Bruno was a master bookmaker. That's where he started out. And he ran the organization very much kind of a laissez-faire don. He wasn't imposing a street tax. He wasn't demanding from people. It was an economic organization, and he knew that at the end of the day, anybody involved in the underworld who was involved in gambling or loan sharking would ultimately have to come to him or a member of his organization.
You could be in there and hear everything if you want, because I got nothing to hide.
How's your health these days?
Not so good.
He was known as the docile Don, but that doesn't mean there wasn't violence during his tenure as mob boss. It was the kind of thing where, with Angelo Bruno, murder was the negotiating tool of last resort. In the mid-1970s, there was a guy named Reds down here in South Philadelphia who used to make his money robbing bookmakers. And Bruno put out the word it had to stop because this was all part of the economic empire. Reds persisted, and ultimately Bruno decided he had to be whacked. So Reds was invited to a bar in Jersey where a couple guys were waiting. In fact, I think one of the guys was Nicky Scarfo. When he walked in, he was garroted, stabbed, and the hitmen were told, roll his body up in a rug and take it out to the woods, where another crew had already dug a grave. And they were told, just leave the body next to the grave. And that's what they did. And then Bruno sent two individuals in who he had total trust. They went out into the woods, filled the grave with dirt, took the body and buried it somewhere else. And Bruno's thinking is, if anybody involved in the hit or in digging the grave became an informant, they would take law enforcement out to the woods, they would dig up nothing. More importantly, anybody who needed to know knew Reds was dead, but for everybody else, Reds was just a missing person. He wasn't around anymore. During Bruno's era, the mob was a money-making organization. It was built around gambling and loan sharking, and Bruno in his own right was a very smart businessman. He had real estate investments. He had a junket that was running to the casinos in London. And Bruno invested in Resorts International stock before the first casino opened in Atlantic City. The stock was selling, I think, at $2 a share, went to about 130 and then split 3 for 1. I mean, he made a fortune just on that. He was a very smart and astute businessman. And unfortunately, the coming of casino gambling in Atlantic City, in a lot of ways, contributed to his demise. Angelo Bruno was killed in 1980 on a rainy night in March. And that was the beginning of the end of the Philadelphia crime family. I've been writing about the crime family for the past 25 years, and the seminal event in the demise of the organization was the murder of Angelo Bruno. Today, it's probably the most dysfunctional mob family in America, kind of the Simpsons of the underworld. But it wasn't always like that. When Bruno was in charge, it was low-key, circumspect, and generated a lot of money, and that's what it was all about. Next on Mob Scene, a look at Operation Delco Nostro, an investigation into the Delaware County branch of the South Philadelphia crime family.